Welcome back to the extended edition of the Wraparound Roundtable. I'm speaking with Bill Neer, who is the founder and CEO of Helios. Bill, I got to ask you this. What was the inspiration, or what was that moment of inspiration behind the stride tracking technology, kind of that started Helios, right? And we'll get into how it expanded. But I think every entrepreneur, every business owner has this moment where, like, you know what? I need this. Can you describe that moment to me?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had finished up my grad school at MIT where I studied, electrical engineering and computer science and was actually working for a automotive startup in the technology space. And we were developing an active suspension system to make autonomous vehicles drive super smooth over the road.
Wow.
And I was living really close to these like chips that actually are in all the, devices we use today, like accelerometers and gyroscopes and IMUs. And what I was realizing was there was an AI capability coming that would integrate into them and allow you to actually train the device to recognize the key motion of an athlete. And
Right.
so the idea became we looked out at the entire sports landscape, and most performance tracking systems that are used by the pros, they actually use position. And what that means is if like you're a soccer player and you're outside playing on the soccer field, you can wear a GPS vest and the GPS constellation is, up in space. The government installed that. But if you go into a hockey rink, you actually have to put like a 50 to $250,000 installation into the ceiling of the rink just to be able to do this kind of thing.
Wow.
And so the idea was really, could we use the motion, the striding motion of the skater to become the keyway into their performance? And if we could do that, we would require zero infrastructure. And all of a sudden, you could use Helios at every level in any rink, no matter where you were skating.
That must have been the coolest realization. I remember, when we started our company, the moment I was like, I think this can really be something that, we could create a company around and like live on. And I'm sure that, there's this line in When Harry Met Sally, which is a rom-com of, when you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start right away, right? I've always described that moment like that, and you can get obsessed. Before I move on, I got to ask, how long till we have autonomous driving? Like normal.
Yeah, I think there's like five levels of autonomy. We're within, maybe 25 years of level five. I think there's companies out there that say we'll be there much faster, but in order for you or I to take a nap and wake up somewhere else, that's still, a couple decades away. But
Yeah,
you
I believe it.
see all of the major brands introducing autonomous driver assisted functions, and a big part of that is actually detecting that you or I are like ready to take over the wheel if
Right.
necessary. So those systems are coming out pretty quickly. It's a lot of helpful features, but I think full autonomy's still got, a little bit of a ways.
Yeah, no, I come from a generation that was promised flying DeLoreans. So, I always like to keep it realistic, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Let's get
absolutely.
back to Helios though before I digress into my geek side. Look, you're really innovating a new space in hockey. And I want you to tell us a bit about, like, from the stride work of, oh, I think we can track this, to how it has grown and really everything that you offer today. And also, one of the cool things about Helios that I love for you and your team is that you've really gotten some great support from the hockey world, right? Which everyone needs if you're going to succeed, right? And I'm not just talking support from your followers and your fan base and the people that use Helios, but really hockey people. So again, walk me through that journey of kind of how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your second point there, like we started the company understanding that every early company kind of lives and dies ultimately on its customers and its users. So I think there was a part during the early days of Helios where I think the most important thing was just being good at customer interactions, support, success. It was almost independent of what we were actually selling, and
Mm,
just being really good at that and building people that had like trust in the brand of Helios during those early days. To
everything.
me, that almost felt like everything, even
Right.
though the product, was offering something totally new and changing. I look back and I think the best thing we did was we were responsive, we had good listening skills, we wanted feedback, and we were just continuously improving around what the customer and the user was telling us. And doing that day after day after day, you can get to a pretty powerful place. And so that's what we still do today in terms of listening to the customer and using that to drive the product
Yeah, let
forward.
me let me dive in real quick because I think that is a massive key to our success at Wraparound as well. We were a trust first business, and we always tell people, especially when young businesses ask us now, like, if you break the trust, it's almost impossible to get it back. Like, you're dead in the water to those people, especially if there's competition, right? But the key, what you also said was we wanted the feedback. And I remember in the early years when the original wraparound was not amazing, right? People would come with like a little anger, like it broke. This is years ago. And I'd say, okay, great. Tell us how it did. And then we'll send you another one. And I don't think people were used to that at the time of like, no, no, we want the feedback. We want to make it better. And I think that 10 years down the line, or for you especially, you have this loyal following of like, no, they're doing this right, right? Like Helios cares. They want to do better. They want to get better. I just think anyone listening to this that's interested in entrepreneurship business, if you don't have that piece, and I mean genuinely have it, it's not just a tactic, right? This is something that comes from the heart. It's tough to succeed out there. So I wanted to compliment you on that because I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, totally. And I think in the world of company building, there's this phrase like eat your own dog food, right? So we're trying to help
Yeah.
others get better faster. And like we need to fully internalize and, live by that idea of getting better faster, which I think we do a really good job as a company in terms of building the product, iterating on the product, listening to the customer. So, back to the product, what was really interesting and kind of to the aha moment, making a device, a single device mounted on the center of your shoulder pads, whether it's the front or the back, see your skating stride was definitely like a not obvious next step from kind of where we jumped off. That there was a huge aha moment when we realized we could uniquely see a left stride or a right stride. And then from there, what we had to actually do is we had to actually collect thousands of hours of left right striding data from lots of different users with different strides of different sizes and shapes. And we use that to train the AI that's actually in the device so that then you could launch a product and just put it on a 9-year-old or an AHL, NHL player, and all of a sudden it's detecting their strides. And so there was a lot of work back in like 2018, 2020, where we did pilots and betas with early groups of users at hockey academies. It was super interesting doing it through a pandemic, wearing a mask
I
in
was just
hockey
gonna say,
rinks.
how'd you do during COVID?
Yeah, we powered through it. And to be honest with you, there were some potential competitors emerging during that time. And I think on the other side of the pandemic, the one thing we learned was we put masks on and made it happen.
Mm.
And some companies actually took a break through the pandemic. And so we really think that that helped us get to market in 2021 and really introduce this thing first to market. And it's been a huge, ally in our growth so far.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome too. And again, another great lesson for the listeners of like things are gonna get in your way, and sometimes they are global events that no one saw coming, and you have to find a way through. But the cool part of being a leader, the cool part of being someone who changes things is, I use the word obsessed a few times. Like you're gonna find a way. You're gonna make it work.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
glad
one of
that
the
you
one
did
of
that.
the funny stories I sometimes tell is so during the pandemic, we actually needed to test the product, and I was actually testing it on myself for some of this testing. And rinks were closed, and rinks that were open were charging a lot for any ice they had available. So it happened to be the winter time, and here in Portsmouth, we have an old historic district where the oldest colonials that like are in New Hampshire are located right on the river. And they put up an outdoor hockey like skating rink for the community. It's not even a normal shape. It's like just a free skating rink.
Right.
And I was going down there at hours of the day when nobody else wanted to be free skating. And I was using that as part of the way of advancing the product because I couldn't get ice time in a traditional hockey rink. And so those were just some of those funny moments I look back on where I was like developing the product for the future of hockey in front of these homes built in the 1600s, 1700s. And it was just it dawned on me in the moment that I would look back and think that that was kind of a unique, you know, point in the time of the company where you just kind of had to make it happen and find the way to do it.
No, I love that you share that. I'm sure we'll make that a mini clip for this episode because again, I won't share our stories. I'll tell you off there. We have similar things we did the wraparound during that time that to make it keep going, right? So I love sharing stories like that. I do again. I want you to dive a little bit into like we talked about stride work, but why don't you walk into a little bit to like everything that Helios can do? Because I think it's
Yeah,
important that
absolutely.
they know that.
Yeah, so I mean, we really have developed a platform for player development that can be used by the individual or by the team. And it starts with skating. And so what we do is we're tracking skating performance or stats whenever you're out there taking strides. And then we're also cutting shift video highlights for the user. Now, on the stats side, what that looks like is we build a baseline that's totally individualized to you, just from your data from your first few sessions. And this baseline is continuously updating as you improve. But what we do is we use that baseline of your performance to show you your progress over time. We use it for some of the features around comparing you to others in your birth year, where you can see how you compare your strengths and weaknesses. We make recommendations for areas that you can improve the most. And then there's also some gamification around your baseline where you get points for your hustle and your effort. So it really kind of engages you in your hockey development.
Yeah, I
On the
love that.
videos,
Yeah, keep going.
yeah,
Sorry,
it's
my
been
bad.
no, that part's been awesome. Like
Yeah.
just driving community around the leaderboards and things like that. Um, on the video side, we've basically integrated with all of the major video platforms. So whether your hockey games are recorded on a camera that's mounted on the wall in the rink, a tripod that one of your coaches or someone sets up, or a parent holding a smartphone, Live Barn, VO, Flow Hockey, Hockey TV, Apple, Android, Pixelot, Minnesota Hockey TV, all these formats, we've basically created compatibility. And so what happens is after the game, you can instantly cut out with the device off the sensor just the shifts that you had in that game, which we realized that like most players and parents, they want to fast forward to just those moments. They want to see themselves out there. And that wasn't available to them today to just very quickly get to that.
Yeah, and I'll say it too, from my own years of development, I wish I had a tool like that. And look, for all the coaches, players, and parents listening, it's important to watch other aspects of the game too. Don't get me wrong, but when you're focused on your own development and how you can get better, the ability to watch video is so valuable to see what you're doing. Right, I'll give a great example that I always use as a coach. At the younger levels, we'll always say, "Hey, we got to move our feet. We got to move our feet. We got to skate." And the younger kids will go, "I am moving," and they don't realize that they're gliding and they're drifting and they're really not moving their feet that much. But when you show them, again, this is like an elementary example. When you show them, like, look, you're not moving your feet. There's always this light bulb aha moment of, oh, I'm not moving my feet. There are a lot of examples of this as you get older that are a little more in depth that I'm not going to dive into, but your tracker Helios allows this to happen. You can see it. Every player listening knows there's a shift you want to go back and watch, whether it's a good one or a bad one, just so you can see what happened there. So even though I don't think that's the primary like thing that Helios does that's valuable, it's extremely valuable, right? So you've just
Yeah, to be
paid more
honest, some
value.
people are telling us they're getting the
Yeah.
product first for the video and they're
Wow.
learning like the value of the stats over time. I'd say it's
Right.
probably the thing that is driving our growth the most is the intersection with the video.
Yeah.
And
You
what's
made
super
people's lives
interesting about
easier.
yeah, I know for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
what's interesting about it, like to your point, it's not just about your shifts. Like there's a whole systems level breakdown of video, and that's kind of what
Right.
the existing industry does. If you look at how hockey video is broken down today, it's typically sent overseas, and there are
Mhm.
video analysts in what I'll call like an offshore labor model where it's cost effective to have them watch the game and tag key
Yeah,
moments.
I've seen
What they end up
those
doing
reports.
most of the time is tagging goals, penalties, assists,
Yep.
face-offs won, things that there aren't that many of in the game. The reality is all those times that jersey numbers come on and off the bench, changes on the fly, that's the hard thing to tag. And
Right.
so most of those services don't tag shifts for the individual. And that's what we're doing instantly and automatically just with the device rather than needing humans to actually watch the video to do it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what those services, because when I was coaching overseas at a professional level, we used some of those. And there's two things I remember. One was, oh wow, this is good information that is valuable to me. But you start to realize, well, I'd really like this. And then you go back and say, well, I'd really like this. And they go, well, we don't do that. I'm like, how do you not do that? Because we need that. And you've provided the solution with that. So awesome stuff. If I'm not mistaken, you hit a pretty big milestone recently of 100 million strides recorded. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we had a big milestone last year. We crossed 100 million. We're actually just over 140 million today.
Wow.
So it just kind of speaks to how quickly the user base is growing. I think we about 4x'd the user base in 2023.
Wow.
So just more people skating, wearing Helios across North America.
You're on a literal hockey stick chart.
We just were looking at like the user curve, and we're heading into like a 5.5 Y P89 curve here.
There you go. I love that reference in the audience, so appreciate that too. It is with that growth, is there anything you can tell us about the future or what things you're looking to improve on or develop, without without giving the farm away, obviously?
Yeah,
What's the
absolutely. I
future
mean,
here? Yeah.
I think what we've learned is that video is so important. So there's so much that we can still do with video, and we have this pipeline of capabilities around the video that's you're going to start seeing it released in the next even couple of weeks here. And it's really allowing the users to like engage with their video in a more powerful way. That's tagging, that's favoriting, capabilities of sharing it. And
Mhm.
so there's some incredible ways in which the user can kind of use this video in a more intentional way for all sorts of applications that we see on the future, including recruitment,
I was just think that.
and
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
opportunities to like help put yourself on a map. So that's really where we're focused, kind of building the product. There's other areas of improvement around the stats and kind of visualizing your baseline. One of the things that, you know, we don't overlook is that not everybody is intrinsically dialed into the idea of like data and numbers. So we've learned a lot about like how intuitive we want the product to be
Right.
for anyone, and you know how you kind of layer information. So somebody who's more technical might want to go a couple layers deeper into
Right.
data. Somebody who maybe doesn't want to get too technical, that's, you know, bought the product for the video features, wants some simple stats. Like, how do we bring that to a way that it's kind of hierarchical, that you can kind of get to what you want, really?
Yeah, I imagine communicating that data is it's much more complex than any of us realize. Like, and like you just said, just based on the person receiving it, right? You got to be able to communicate it effectively, or else they might not see the value in it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And
right.
that's one of those places where listening to the customer matters so much, because we don't, you know, we know that we are engineers and data scientists. And so we are folks that really can go kind of deep with numbers, but we're designing product capabilities for folks that might not want like a deep stats kind of view. And so how you make that simple, intuitive, which I think we've always done a good job at, but we see ways to really drive that home and make the product even better. That's really what we're focused on right now.
Right. And the key is awareness of that, right? And you have it. And I always say when I'm speaking to coaches, or players, that you could be the best tactician in history, like the greatest hockey tactician of all time. But if you cannot effectively communicate those tactics, you're dead in the water. It doesn't matter
Absolutely.
how good you are, right? So the awareness of that is the first step, and then you're actually doing stuff about it, which I love. And like you said, listening, right? That's not always the easiest skill for people. I'm speaking as a host of a show. You have to listen to people, right? One thing we didn't tap on, before we close this out, is we've talked a lot about the individual application, but our good friend Mike Benelli, who is a co-host on Our Kids Play Hockey, he uses this in a lot
Absolutely.
of team ways too. So can you dive into how teams are using Helios?
Yeah, and we've really seen like an explosion of like the team and org implementations. We had one 200 player, 14 team customer last
Wow.
year that we
Wow.
signed on in April in Long Island. And so, you know, one of the things we're seeing is that the value we provide when implemented at the team level to give the coach kind of roster breakdowns and comparables is
Mm,
so valuable. It's information on the bench, on your phone, on a tablet while the game is happening to help you make decisions. And then on the video front, it's what we were talking about before, but it's even more efficient. A single copy of video cuts a shift playlist for every player that was in the team session. So there's almost this magic that like a coach can really bring individualized feedback and shifts to their entire roster in such an easy way. And so over the last year, we brought on about 80 teams as customers. And these are teams that range from 10U all the way up to a deployment with NHL franchises, AHL affiliate. And we're seeing everything in between, because there's really value added at different levels that we're contributing.
that is amazing. What you just said there. I mean, the what you're bringing to the game, and I'd say it's almost, well, maybe not early days, but you're still in the first beginning phases of this in terms of what it can do. One of the things I know about organizations, especially in youth hockey, is as the quote unquote business side of it kind of grows, which is a curse and a blessing, I guess, and at the same time, is the need to separate yourself from other organizations. I can imagine, I'm pitching you now in a way, but I can imagine, like, if you have a lot of teams in the area, this is a way of like, look, we have Helios, and in addition to great coaching, we're going to give you all this great data. And I mean, that might get me over there. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
No, we're definitely seeing a strong like interplay of neighboring orgs, competitive orgs, but also just individuals. So it's like it's all helping in that we might have 15 kids in an organization, but we might not have them as a team customer yet.
Right.
And then having those 15 individual users gets somebody on the board to reach out, ask for a call, ask for a proposal, ask for a quote, and then we end up with a team in the org. And so this kind of individual and team thing is just sort of bouncing back and forth and reinforcing and helping overall just grow the number of people using the product, which is the most important thing right now.
Yeah, well, if you keep going this way, you're going to have a legal McSorley stick or a Stan Makita blade in terms of the curve of users.
I love
But
that.
yeah, Bill, last question for you. So I'm always I try and share gratitude all the time. I love doing this show, not just because I get to meet the other people, you know, the brothers and the sisters in the industry of hockey, but to hear these great stories is so motivating for me as your peer, right? I love that about the hockey world amongst 5 billion other things. What do you love about working in the hockey world?
Yeah, it's something where I have like my deepest passion from growing up in this sport. And so first of all, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for hosting this show. I think the community building you do really speaks to the nature of this sport and the way in which hockey is just the best game. I was at the PWHL Boston versus Minnesota game. I loved how the end of the game was this mixed, group shot of every player from both rosters. And they had played a pretty physical competitive game, and it
You could
ended
say
in
that, yeah.
like classic way that hockey ends, with handshake and like camaraderie. So I love that. We've gotten so much good feedback from our users and our customers who I think believe in Helios and who see like the potential of it, and they're willing to share that feedback. And to me, that's what hockey is, right? It's a lot of people investing in the sport, the coaching mechanics, the parents, the players. There's just so much passion for hockey. And I think that's probably what I like most about it.
No, I appreciate the compliment. And I'll tell you that there's such a great quote that I think speaks to hockey more than other sports. And it's hockey's not something you do, it's something you are. And
Absolutely.
when you're in the game, that makes complete sense, right? I tell that to people, like, that's not even English, like correct English. I said, no, you don't get it. I don't know what to say to you. Um, Listen,
We
everyone
are
needs to check
hockey.
this out. Yeah, it's true, right? Everyone needs to check this out. Again, it's helioshockey.com, right? If anything, you can go there and get some great information, right? If you haven't gotten enough from this podcast already. But Bill, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for coming on today. This really has been a joy. And I'd love gotten to know a little bit more about Helios and where you're at, where you were, and where you're going.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, buddy. That's going to do it for this edition of the Wraparound Roundtable. Remember, all of the extended interviews are available on our YouTube channel, Hockey Wraparound. And make sure to check out hockeywraparound.com for whatever giveaways we have going on whenever you're listening to this. For Bill, I'm Lee. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Skate on, everybody.